On a damp park bench, the fate of a young man changed completely. Tears of despair ran down his face, a sight that caught the attention of a woman who led a criminal organization. With a gaze that promised both danger and salvation, she approached him. Her words weren't a question, but a declaration of absolute possession. "Now you're mine." That moment sealed a dark pact, pulling him out of the depths and throwing him into a world where his new life began under the imposing shadow of his savior. The hallway seems to breathe with her, measured steps, heels striking the marble like a restrained blade. Catalina Vorse doesn't need to raise her voice to move worlds. One look from her carries the weight of promises. Verona sleeps, yet the aged bells seem to listen to her controlled breath. As she passes, the shadows adjust themselves, afraid to be out of place. No one calls her by name. Silence obeys first. Her coat falls across her shoulders like armor, black fabric that drinks in the light without giving any back. Her rings make no sound. They've learned to stay quiet on nights of hard decisions. There are centuries in her eyes, though her face tells another story, one no one knows how to read. The city is an ancient chessboard, and she controls its invisible diagonals. Winter chose her, and she accepted without asking the price. The wind slides through the alleys, carrying fragments of conversations unworthy of memory. Catalina knows every hinge of the night, every breath hiding around the corner. There are no friends, no comfort, only purpose, command, and distance. The heart learns to move at a slower pace when the city demands cold blood. Affection became a useless currency she keeps hidden away. She stops in front of the dark window of a closed flower shop. Dried roses remind her of broken promises, pollen from stories of power and betrayal. The thorns recall that dangerous love always charges a price when it blooms too late. Catalina touches the glass, and even her hand feels like a coded message. Passionate romance is a language she chose to forget, but it still burns quietly inside her chest. A memory insists, the smell of rain, and a name whispered like a vow. The name doesn't return completely, only the syllables that cut. She blinks, and the city regains its pulse as if nothing happened. Leadership demands that memories be filed away, not revisited. Yet the faint crescent mark on her wrist burns, quietly asking for an answer. She crosses the old bridge, its stones keeping secrets and fate. The water runs heavy, as if carrying letters that never reach their destination. Catalina doesn't look down. She looks ahead, where power never hesitates. The lit windows scattered across the skyline are eyes that don't dare meet hers. Above, the clouds weave a roof of lead over the night. A phone vibrates without sound, messages already read before they arrive. Orders, schedules, veiled promises, nothing that touches beneath the skin. The European underworld moves to her rhythm, isolating her a little more each day. To command has become another word for surviving without explanations. And survival always charges a price no one dares to count. Catalina walks through the central square as if inspecting a kingdom made of fog. The empty benches know her shadow and keep it without judgment. There's one seat that always calls to her, but she never sits, never yields. Whoever commands silence must stay distant from rest. Fatigue is a secret she carries in her pocket, right next to the lighter. A light drizzle falls, tiny drops like confessions that never turn into words. The umbrella stays closed because her skin accepts the night as part of the pact. She feels the weight of her coat and the faint scent of leather and iron. A watch on her wrist marks hours no one dares delay. Every minute pushes a past that insists on walking beside her. Power is the only companion that never leaves you, she thinks without moving her lips. The phrase is old, a kind of steel rosary she repeats to herself. It was never spoken aloud, it's carved on the inner wall of her chest. Among orders and maps, it's the only prayer that never fails. But prayers sometimes change their voice when the streets start to whisper. A cat crosses the sidewalk and stops in front of her, as if waiting for permission. Its eyes reflect a light that doesn't come from the lamp. Catalina lifts one corner of her mouth, almost a smile, almost nothing. The creature walks away. silent like a message from someone who belongs to no one. She understands signs that shouldn't mean anything, yet somehow they do. A breeze brings the smell of a late-night bakery, bread and honey trying to comfort the night. Those scents remind her of a table she refused, a house she never opened. Stories about overcoming things sound easier to those who've never looked into the abyss. She did, bargained with it, and came back with the price written in her eyes. Since then, she doesn't accept change in weak hope. Her steps shift rhythm as the square seems to take a deep breath. Music drifts from afar, a weary saxophone playing notes made of rain. Catalina doesn't slow down, but her head tilts slightly, as if listening to fate itself. The melody tells a truth she pretends not to hear. Truths spoken at the wrong time turn into traps without warning. A patrol car passes slowly, headlights sweeping the ground, not daring to stop her. They recognize the figure the city has learned not to confront. The engine fades away, and the night becomes hers again, whole and sharp. In Verona, some names weigh more than sirens. Catalina is one of those names that doesn't need a last one. She crosses under a stone arch and finds the old bench. She sits for a moment, just to measure the weight of the night. Her fingers touch the cold wood, tracing its cracks like maps. Each fracture feels like a road leading to a forbidden past. Forbidden love is an echo that refuses to be tamed. The streetlights flicker, and for a second, the entire square blinks with them. The rain etches circles in the puddles' small lakes. Catalina watches it all with a cruel calm, the calm of someone who's already lost. Losing taught her never to ask, only to take, and to return with interest. Even so, her chest sometimes asks for peace without warning. Her phone vibrates again, a short message. Coordinates, time, place. She deletes it without replying, master of her own internal clock. Power doesn't answer when the night wants something else. There's something in the air, an invitation never written down. And the invisible ones are always the most dangerous. She rises as if pulled by an invisible thread toward the edge of the square. Her coat trails behind her, leaving a dark trace, almost a signature on the wet pavement. Her breathing sets the rhythm, steady, deliberate, a prayer made of steel. In the distance, a solitary bell marks the hour without hurry. Catalina keeps walking because destiny doesn't wait for those who fear a second chance. Memory bites. A voice once told her to learn how to feel. She swallowed that voice, turned it into iron, and kept moving. But iron, when it rains, remembers it was fire once. And fire, when it remembers, craves something to burn again. Night after night that craving returns, a coal pretending to sleep. Turns the corner and suddenly stops, not out of fear, but instinct. Something shifts in the scene, a tiny error in the perfect silence. Her heart doesn't race. It sharpens like a blade finding its reason. Catalina Voss, the woman who commanded silence, senses the change. And she listens, because some orders are born as whispers and demand an answer. The rain deepens in tone, as if unseen musicians had changed their sheet music. She lifts her face to the dark sky and closes her eyes for a moment. There's no prayer, no plea, only readiness, dissent, and choice. Between love and redemption, between crimes and forgiveness, something stirs. That small movement, almost invisible, feels like the beginning of an earthquake. The rain falls unhurriedly, as if trying to wash ancient secrets from Verona's stones. The square breathes a cold silence, part confession, part surrender. Catalina notices a man sitting on a bench, his face hidden by rain and regret. He holds a wedding ring, the faint golden shine flickering like a broken promise. There's something sacred and shattered in that gesture, as if all the world's time could fit into the palm of one hand. Elias Marcelli, former military doctor, former everything that once had a name. The hands that once saved lives now tremble, holding what's left of one. His eyes wander somewhere between the ground and the past. He seems to speak to someone no longer there. The rain doesn't bother him, maybe because it's been raining inside for longer. Catalina watches him, and, for a brief moment, something inside her forgets to be stone. The wind shifts, and the streetlight above them flickers. Its light finds him, revealing the scar cutting across his eyebrow. He cries silently, the way only those who've learned that sound betrays weakness can. The ring slips from his fingers, rolling until it stops between puddles. Catalina steps forward, her heels sinking slightly into the soaked asphalt. The world seems to hold its breath as she approaches. She bends down, picks up the ring, and holds it between her cold fingers. For an instant, the golden reflection lights up her face, strong yet serene. Elias lifts his gaze, startled. Their eyes meet, two strangers carrying the same kind of ruin. When he reaches for the ring, she doesn't let go. "You look like someone who needs a new reason to live." Her voice cuts through the air like a verdict. He can't tell if it's an offer or a threat, only feels the weight of her words settling in his chest. Catalina studies him calmly, as if measuring the worth of a soul. He hesitates, drenched, exhausted, defeated. The kind of man destiny tests to the edge, then asks if he still believes. She doesn't look away, because power recognizes when despair is honest. "Please give it back." His voice is low, almost a plea for mercy. "Only if you owe me something in return." Catalina says it without emotion, yet there's an echo of curiosity in her tone. The invisible camera draws closer, revealing the contrast between their hands, his, trembling and alive, hers, steady and deliberate. The rain grows heavier, and each drop feels like the signature of an unwritten contract. Elias exhales slowly, defeated by something he can't name. That gaze holds him, not with fear, but with mystery. There's something about her that dares him to breathe again. The distant chime of a bell blends with the tension in their breath. "From now on, you work for me." She hands the ring back, but the gesture feels like a command. He accepts, though he doesn't yet understand what he's agreed to. Catalina turns and begins to walk, and he follows without knowing why. The streets reflect the lamplight like mirrors of a fate-shifting direction. Their footsteps echo in rhythm. Two worlds on a collision course. Elias tries to ask what she wants, but the answer rides the wind. "When I say it's over, you leave." There's no room for negotiation. A black car waits at the corner, engine running, driver expressionless. Elias hesitates before getting in, but she doesn't look back. He climbs in, pulled by something between curiosity and surrender. The door shuts, muffling the sound of rain, and the silence inside weighs heavier than 1,000 questions. The camera lingers on his face, the doubt of someone who senses he's just crossed a line. Catalina lights a cigarette, the flicker of the lighter painting quick flashes across the dark interior. Smoke rises slowly, blending with Elias's restrained breath. "What's your name?" he asks. She doesn't look at him when she replies, "Catalina Vos." The name lands like a verdict. He recognizes it, though he can't explain why his body reacts as if something long buried has awakened. The car moves through the empty avenue, headlights slicing through the fog. Outside, Verona sleeps. Inside, two ghosts watch each other, unsure which one is more wounded. She, the mistress of silence. He, the prisoner of guilt. And in that unlikely intersection, fate cracks open a narrow door. The tension between them burns without fire, yet still manages to light the dark. Elias watches her reflection in the window, and it's there, in that reflection, that he sees the abyss. Catalina isn't watching the road, she's staring into nothing. He knows that look. It's the same one he saw in soldiers ready to give up. Only in her, surrender comes with elegance. The car keeps moving, every mile feeling like a pact. The kind of pact that won't dissolve with the sunrise. Outside, the tower clock strikes 3 a.m. Catalina exhales control, but something in her fingers betrays a faint tremor. Elias notices, and for a split second, the image of the untouchable woman cracks. There's fatigue there, maybe pain, maybe memory. He wants to ask, but learns quickly that with certain people, silence is the only safe language. She leads him to the mansion, iron gates that open, as if obeying her very presence. The rain mirrors the pillars, the statues, and the melancholy glow of the lit windows. Elias feels a shiver run through him, not from the cold, but from something he can't quite name. The woman who brought him here carries a storm inside her eyes. And strangely, he wants to walk straight into it. Catalina walks ahead, her firm footsteps echoing across the marble hall. He follows, still unsure why obedience feels so natural. There's something in her presence that disarms defenses built long ago. With every step, he feels his past rearranging itself. The life that once felt shattered now simply seems to have changed shape. The guilt is still there, but it's starting to lose its voice. She stops at the foot of the staircase and looks at him. From this moment on, your life is my responsibility. Elias tries to laugh, but no sound comes out. The echo of her words fills the space between them. He can't tell if it's a threat or a salvation, and maybe neither can she. Sometimes fate doesn't warn you when it's about to piece together what's been broken. The night deepens and time seems to slow. Catalina studies the man the world has already destroyed and feels something stir inside her. Something she hasn't felt in years. Elias, in turn, looks at the woman fate has placed before him and senses danger. But there are moments when danger feels more alive than peace, and this is one of them. In the silence that follows, they share the same air. The camera pulls back, showing the distance that still exists between them, a distance that feels ready to disappear. Thunder rolls in the distance, breaking the stillness for just a heartbeat, echoing against the walls. Catalina closes her eyes, and Elias somehow understands, what began in that square will not end here. The car still drips in the garage. Rain still traces the stained glass. Verona sleeps, unaware of the new pact being born between a broken heart and a hardened soul. Catalina Vorse has brought Elias Marcelli into her world and doesn't yet realize that, in doing so, she has begun to lose control of it. The early morning air still hangs heavy when Catalina approaches him in the grand hall. Pale light filters through the tall windows, cutting the air into blue fragments. Elias stands there, motionless, clothes still damp from the rain. He looks around as if stepping into another era. Marble floors, ancient paintings, too much silence. Catalina moves slowly, each calculated step echoing like a memory. "You look like someone who hasn't yet understood his own fate," she says without looking at him. The words hover between them, and the world feels suspended by an invisible thread. He tries to speak, but his voice falters. "I didn't ask to be here." Catalina turns to him, and for a moment, the authority in her eyes mixes with a curiosity she tries to hide. "No one asks to be saved," she murmurs. Elias steps back, but something in her presence keeps him from leaving. The air is thick with promise. She moves closer. The sound of her heels on the floor is a warning, each step another sentence. He reaches out, trying to take the ring back. She holds it tightly. "Please, give it back." The words come out almost as a sigh, but Catalina doesn't release it. "Only if you owe me something in return." Her eyes catch the cold light of the chandelier, and behind that chill, there's a flicker of unrest. Something the audience can feel, though she refuses to show it. The invisible camera moves closer. Her gaze is that of someone who's lost everything but control. Elias sees it too, and the tension between them becomes something neither of them can quite name. "Then tell me what you want from me." His voice comes out steadier this time, though fear still pulses beneath his skin. Catalina presses the ring against his chest, the cold metal against his soaked shirt. "I want your loyalty." The words sound simple, but they land like a verdict. He feels the touch, and with it, the weight of what it means. "And if I refuse?" he asks. She smiles, a brief, joyless smile. No one refuses destiny when it arrives in the middle of the night. Elias lowers his head, trying to hide the despair in his eyes. Catalina watches him, and there's something in her posture, a trace of compassion carefully disguised. For a moment, Power hesitates. She hands the ring back, but not the control. From now on, you work for me, and when I say it's over, you'll leave. The sentence feels more like a dark vow than a command. He takes the ring, realizing it feels less like a gift and more like a chain. The silence that follows is heavy. Elias knows that by accepting it, something inside him has shifted. Catalina's gaze, once pure authority, now cuts through him like a cold wind carrying memory. She turns her face away as if closing a ritual. The sound of rain outside keeps time with their breathing. No words are needed. The whole city seems to hold its breath. Verona knows when a pact has been sealed. She walks toward the staircase, and he follows without meaning to. The steps are wide and cold, their echoes forming a melody without tune. Catalina stops before a door, opens it, and gestures inside. This will be your room. He looks around the empty space, the untouched bed, the faint scent of lavender and dust. You want me to stay? He asks. I want you to understand why I didn't let you go. Elias steps in, laying his coat over the chair. The mirror ahead reflects him strangely, as if he's no longer the same man. He feels her gaze on his back, steady yet distant. Why me? The question barely escapes his lips. Catalina doesn't answer. She walks to the window, touches the glass, and stares out at the rain-soaked garden. Because sometimes you have to choose someone who has nothing left to lose. She turns. And for a brief moment they're standing too close. Time stretches. Elias catches her scent. Tobacco, rain, and something undefinable, like a memory. The tension is almost tangible, yet no touch follows. Just two worlds colliding in silence. Catalina steps back slightly and speaks softly. Sleep. Tomorrow begins what you don't yet understand. He tries to respond, but her eyes close the conversation. When the door shuts, the sound feels more symbolic than real. Elias is left alone, holding the ring like an unsolved riddle. The storm outside grows stronger, thunder rolling across the high ceiling. He lies down but doesn't sleep. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees her face, and the weight of the words "now you're mine" haunts him like an invisible mark. Elsewhere in the house, Catalina sits before the unlit fireplace. The reflection of imagined flames flickers in her eyes. She touches the scar on her wrist and whispers something no one hears. Maybe a name, maybe a prayer for forgiveness. The walls seem to listen as the clock reminds her that the night isn't over. She can't explain why, but something about that man has reignited a fire she swore would never burn again. The night dies slowly. The sound of rain blends with the restrained breathing of two souls, separated by corridors and secrets. Catalina rises, walks to the window, and gazes at the drenched garden. The moonlight touches her face, revealing the shadow of something that looks like regret. Outside, Verona sleeps. Inside, two fates awaken. The wind stirs, and the curtain moves as if brushed by something unseen. Catalina closes her eyes. For a moment she imagines herself free of her name's burden, free of the weight that power demands. But reason quickly returns. Power is all that remains when love is no longer safe. Still, Elias's face keeps returning to her mind, and that quiet intrusion disarms her in ways she doesn't admit. The clock strikes for a dotim. The metallic sound echoes through the hallways and slips into Elias's room. He rises, walks to the window, and sees a silhouette in the garden. It's her, standing still, staring at the sky. He watches without being seen, and something shifts inside him, a thread of empathy, perhaps the start of faith. For the first time in years, he feels the need to understand someone. Catalina remains under the rain, as if searching for answers only the cold knows. Her dark coat clings to her body, hair plastered to her face. The image is almost penitential. She lifts her head toward the sky, letting the water run down her skin as though washing away old guilt. Elias watches, and in his eyes, once filled with fear, something new begins to bloom. Admiration. The night ends, but silence lingers. When the first light stretches across the horizon, Catalina turns back toward the house. Elias steps away from the window, pretending to sleep. Yet both know something has changed, even if it has no name yet. Destiny has once again moved its pieces. And Catalina. Voss, the woman who ruled over silence, has just created the one bond that might destroy everything she's built. Morning comes grey, dragging with it a silence heavier than the night before. The sun doesn't rise in Verona. It only hints at a distant glow that barely grazes the mansion's windows. Catalina walks down the hall with a cup in her hands, steam curling upward like prayers that never reach heaven. Her footsteps echo against the stained glass, and the entire house seems to wake with her. Upstairs, Elias stirs, uncertain where the dream ends and the captivity begins. He studies the high ceiling, the thick curtains, the scent of old wood mixed with her perfume. The dampness from the night still clings to his skin, as if the rain had seeped into his bones. He descends the stairs slowly, cautiously, and finds her seated at the table before a cup of coffee gone cold. Catalina doesn't look up, but she knows he's there. "I thought you'd left." Her voice is calm, though there's a hint of provocation in her tone. Elias answers softly with a slight tremor, "I don't know the way." She smiles, not out of irony, but like someone recognizing a prisoner who hasn't yet seen the bars. The conversation stalls, but silence says what words can't. Catalina watches him, noticing for the first time the details her mind usually filters out, the way he holds the cup, the care he takes to avoid her eyes. "Have you ever killed anyone?" she asks suddenly. He hesitates, startled by the abrupt question. "Yes, but it was during the war." She leans in slightly, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Then you already know what it means to survive without feeling alive." He doesn't understand the reason for the question, but he feels it like looking into a mirror. Catalina rises, walks to the window, and stares at the fog-covered garden. "I need someone to remind me what it feels like to feel." The words fall into the air like confessions from a weary soul. Elias says nothing. He can sense that beneath her hardness lies a sadness that has no name. "I'm not a therapist," he says with faint sarcasm. Catalina turns her face toward him, and for the first time, there's something human in her eyes. "I know. That's why I chose you." She leads him down a side corridor to a locked iron door secured by a code. When it opens, it reveals a room with cold walls and tall windows. In the center, a chair, a tray of medical instruments, and a locked metal case. Elias scans everything, suspicion rising. "What is this?" he asks. Catalina doesn't answer right away. She switches on a hanging lamp that floods the room with harsh, interrogative light. It's where truth doesn't get a choice. The silence thickens, and the distant ticking of a clock marks each second like a sentence. "I want you to treat me," she says, her tone leaving no space for refusal. He frowns, unsure he's heard right. "Treat what?" Catalina removes her coat, revealing a deep, uneven scar across her left shoulder. "They said it was an accident." They lied. Elias steps closer, eyes locked on the old wound. "Who did this to you?" Her answer comes sharp, almost cutting. "The man who destroyed your life." For a moment time bends between them. The revelation slices both ways. Elias feels his pulse quicken, but her gaze keeps him anchored. Catalina sits down and hands him a small suture kit. "I don't want healing. I want remembrance." He hesitates, then obeys. As he cleans the scar, he feels her skin tremble slightly, as if her body resists its own history. She breathes deeply, but doesn't pull away. "Does it hurt?" he asks quietly. "It does. I just learnt not to show it." Her voice carries both vulnerability and steel. Elias catches the contrast and for the first time feels something close to empathy. The tension between them changes, no longer power or pity, but something in between. Recognition. Two survivors of different wars sitting beneath the same light. Catalina watches his hands, steady, practiced, and feels an unfamiliar sense of déjà vu. Do you still believe in redemption? She asks. The question disarms him. He lets out a short laugh, but it dies quickly. Redemption is just a word the weak invented to make guilt bearable. She studies him for a moment, then murmurs, maybe. Her gaze lingers, and for a heartbeat, the audience can feel it, the wall beginning to crack. When the bandage is done, she stands, pours a glass of wine, and hands it to him, a toast to survival. Elias hesitates. I haven't had a drink in years. Then start living again. The glasses touch, their chime echoing through the cold room like a pact. Catalina drinks slowly, her eyes never leaving his. You know what I hate most, Doctor? People who feel pity. Elias doesn't answer, he just meets her gaze, and for the first time there's no fear. Only something unfamiliar, curiosity. Night falls early and dinner is served in silence. The table's far too long for two people. The space between them feels like a minefield. Catalina eats slowly, every movement measured. Elias watches her gestures, the absolute control. Have you always lived like this? He asks. She meets his eyes. No. Once, I was someone who believed in love and redemption. But love was an expensive mistake. And redemption. A luxury I can't afford. He lowers his gaze, touched by a pain that isn't his. The wind slips through the window, extinguishing part of the candlelight. Then why me? He asks. Catalina takes a moment before answering. Because you still believe you can save someone. His eyes flicker, uncertain, but he doesn't deny it. And you, do you want to be saved? She lets out a soft, bitter laugh. Wanting isn't something I know how to do anymore. The invisible camera circles them, capturing the contrast. She, made of shadow. He, still trying to breathe light. Dinner ends, but their silence continues the conversation. Catalina stands and walks to the door. Before leaving, she says only, tomorrow, 7 a.m, you start working. And remember, in this house, even hope needs permission. The words linger like a distorted blessing. Elias remains alone, staring at the wine left in his glass. He thinks about leaving, running, but something keeps him there. It isn't fear, it's fascination. The woman before him is the most dangerous mystery he's ever faced. Outside, the storm returns, and inside, two hearts beat to the same rhythm, the rhythm of risk. Catalina climbs the stairs but doesn't go straight to her room. She stops in the hallway, presses her forehead against the wall, and closes her eyes. The old pain stirs again, but this time, something new flickers beneath it, a spark of life. Perhaps, for the first time in years, she's let someone see inside her. And that terrifies her more than any enemy ever could. Downstairs, Elias turns off the lights and looks through the window. His reflection merges with that of the house, and for a fleeting moment, it seems there are two men, the one he was and the one he's becoming. He doesn't know what Catalina truly wants, but he feels that their arrangement is more than work. It's the beginning of a labyrinth with no way out, where love and destruction walk side by side. The night closes over the day without mercy, covering Verona with the same veil that hides their intentions. The house breathes with them, and fate approaches. Slow, deliberate, inevitable. The pact has been made, and like all vows born from silence, it will demand its price the moment the heart dares to feel again. The night stretches on, rain tapping softly against the stained glass windows of the mansion. The clock strikes 7, and the air tastes like iron and memory. Elias walks down the corridor, each step measured, following the dim yellow light spilling from a half-open door. Inside, he finds Catalina sitting by the fireplace, the flames reflected in her eyes like a secret about to surface. She says nothing, simply extends her arm, a small wound, a thin red line across her skin. He steps closer and, without a word, begins to clean it. His touch is gentle, but the tension between them hums like electricity, thick and undeniable. Her breathing changes, barely noticeable, but real. Elias catches the faint scent of smoke mingled with her perfume, something between tobacco and a coming storm. "How did this happen?" he asks, trying to break the silence. Catalina gives a small, sideways smile without looking at him. From a love that ended badly. The answer hangs in the air, heavy with meaning he can't quite grasp. Her gaze drifts into the flames, and he realizes there are memories burning there. Slowly, like damp wood that never fully goes out. The cut is small, but she watches him work with almost ritual attention. "Have you always been this careful?" Elias hesitates before replying. "Taking care of others was all I knew how to do. Until someone taught me how to stop." Catalina studies him, and for a heartbeat, empathy flickers beneath her cold exterior. "Then maybe we're too much alike." He doesn't answer, just keeps working. The white cloth stains red, and the contrast feels almost symbolic, innocence and guilt blending in a single gesture. When he finishes, something makes him pause. An old scar shaped like a crescent moon just below her shoulder. "Where did that come from?" he asks quietly, brushing his fingers near the fresh bandage. Catalina stays silent for a moment. Her eyes harden, but her voice remains steady. "From a love that swore to protect me, and nearly killed me trying." The fireplace crackles, the sound slicing through the air as if reacting to the memory. Elias steps back, realizing he's wandered into dangerous ground. She stands, walks to a shelf, and takes a small picture frame covered in dust. She blows on it, revealing an old photograph. Elias moves closer. In the image, a smiling man beside her, the same politician who destroyed his life. His breath catches. His stomach sinks. The room feels smaller, spinning around him. "That man," he murmurs. Catalina cuts him off before he can finish. "Was my husband." The words fall heavy like stones hitting the floor. The silence that follows is absolute. Elias steps back, body tense, hands trembling. "Your husband was Franco Vos." She nods, almost imperceptibly. "The same man who made me lose everything." His voice shakes with disbelief. "And you brought me here, knowing that?" Catalina closes her eyes for a second, taking a slow breath. "I brought you because I needed to know if the pain I carried was still real. And now I do." The space between them feels like an abyss. Ilias's heart pounds, anger rising in waves. So all of this was a game? Catalina moves toward him, her gaze unwavering. "Nothing we've lived as a game, Doctor. I just needed to see if truth still existed in someone." Her voice cracks for a fraction of a second, then steadies again. He steps away, but she continues quietly. "Franco destroyed us both, just in different ways. Maybe that's why fate led you to me." Elias lets out a bitter laugh. "Fate? You call this hell you built fate?" Catalina meets his glare without flinching. "I didn't build hell. I just learned how to live in it." The silence that follows is thick, suffocating. The fire roars higher, casting trembling shadows across the walls, shadows that seem more alive than the two of them. Elias stares at the photo for a long moment, then knocks it from her hand. The glass shatters against the floor, the sound echoing through the house like a muffled scream. Catalina doesn't move. She stares at the broken reflection and murmurs, "Now we're even." Elias runs his hands over his face, drained. "There's no, even when you've lost everything." She steps closer, her face inches from his. "There is, when what you lose makes space for something that was never meant to exist." He tries to understand, but her words slip through him like smoke. Their eyes lock, and time freezes somewhere between forgiveness and fury. A thunderclap slices through the air. The lights flicker, and for an instant the fire casts light over only half her face, the half made of strength. The other half, buried in shadow, carries guilt. Elias sees the contradiction and feels something unexpected. Pity. The feeling unnerves him, so he turns away, trying to hide it. Catalina notices and smiles faintly. "Don't pity me, Doctor. I still know how to bite." She walks toward a piano covered by a sheet. Pulling it away, she presses a single key. The sound is old, off-key, but alive. Franco hated when I played, she says quietly. He used to say music softened power. Elias leans against the wall, still shaken. Was he right? She holds his gaze for a moment. No. Music just reminded me who I was before they turned me into this. The last word drips like venom. Elias approaches slowly, drawn by something in her pain. You can still change. She laughs, humorless. Change is for people who still believe in faith. I deal in debts. He watches her play, the notes spilling through the room like an old lament. And in that moment, he understands something. Behind the Iron Woman stands someone who bleeds, in silence. The realization disarms him. The hatred inside him begins to twist into something more dangerous. Compassion. The piano falls silent. Catalina doesn't move. The fireplace crackles once more before fading into embers, plunging the room into shadow. She turns to him, her voice low but sharp. Be careful with the past, Doctor. It bites back when you think you've tamed it. He hears the warning, but not yet its weight. Outside, the wind howls against the windows. The night closes in like a book that refuses to be read to the end. Elias gathers the shattered photo and places it on the table, unable to look again. Catalina lights a cigarette and watches the smoke curl upward, dancing between them like a border neither dares to cross. Do you still think I brought you here to hurt you? She asks. Elias hesitates. I don't know what to think anymore. She exhales slowly, her eyes fixed on him. Then start to feel. Thinking never saved anyone. They stay there, wrapped in silence. The storm outside is the only witness. The past is alive, pulsing through the walls, waiting for its moment to collect what it's owed. And Catalina, though she'll never admit it, knows that fate has only just begun to name its price. By dawn, the mansion sinks into a heavy stillness, thick as old guilt. The rain has stopped, but the air still smells of wet earth and confession. Catalina walks barefoot down the corridor, her shadow gliding across the walls like a living memory. Downstairs, Elias studies the broken frame on the table, unable to decide whether he feels anger or mercy. The fire has died, leaving only timid embers, and in them he sees her reflection, her face, her story, and the quiet certainty that there's still something she hasn't told him. Catalina stops at the top of the stairs. The distant ticking of a clock marks 3 a.m. There's resolve in her eyes and fear disguised beneath her breath. She descends slowly, each step echoing like a heartbeat. Elias notices her and rises, his eyes searching for answers that never come. She holds a glass in her hand, but the wine isn't wine, it's liquid courage. You should be asleep, she says. And you should stop hiding. His reply isn't a challenge. It's a plea, one she pretends not to hear. Why me? He presses. Why bring me here, knowing everything? Catalina steps closer, the space between them shrinking until it's heat. Because I know who you are, Doctor. The words land like a strike. Elias's body stiffens. You know? She gives a faint, knowing smile. I've always known. He tries to control his voice, but the anger seeps through. So it was all a setup. Catalina shakes her head slowly, her expression more wounded than cold. No. It was a chance. Elias lets out a dry, bitter laugh. A chance for what? To break me again. Catalina sets the glass down on the table, the sound sharp in the quiet room. To save me, she says, and for the first time her voice trembles. He meets her eyes and sees something he didn't expect. Truth. Save you? From what? He asks. She exhales, begins to pace in circles. From the man you think is dead. Elias freezes. Franco. Catalina stops, confirming it with a look. He's not dead, Elias. He made me believe it, just like he made you believe you were guilty. The revelation ripples through the room. Elias feels the ground tilt, his chest tightening with rage and disbelief. He's still alive. Catalina steps closer, her tone unflinching. Alive and still running the empire he stole from me. Her gaze hardens, Her voice sharpens. That accident, the senator's daughter's death, it wasn't your mistake. It was his design. Elias's blood boils. The memories flash back, jagged and cutting. He made me take the blame. Catalina nods slowly. And when I tried to expose him, he threatened me. Said if I spoke a word, you wouldn't live to see dawn. Elias steps back, hands tangled in his hair, his breathing uneven. So every loss, every scar, all of it was crafted by him. She watches him, composed on the outside but tense beneath. Yes, evil doesn't vanish, Elias. It just changes its address. He looks at her, disbelieving. So why bring me here? For revenge? Catalina shakes her head gently. Justice. He laughs bitterly. Justice? This feels like madness. She steps closer, her voice stripped of frost. It's not madness when it's the only way to breathe. The light flickers across her eyes, revealing the mix of fury and sorrow that fuels her. The silence between them hums like a wire about to snap. Catalina leans in, inches from his face. You want the truth, Doctor? Then listen. Franco used both of us. I was the distraction. You were the scapegoat. The words hit like bullets. Elias absorbs each one, heavy and raw. Why tell me now? He asks. Catalina's gaze drifts to the floor. Because he's found me again. Her confession is barely a whisper. He said he knows I found you, and that he's going to finish what he started. Elias goes still, the air thick around him. So I'm not here by choice. I'm here to survive. Catalina meets his eyes. You're alive because of me. He laughs softly, bitterly. Or condemned because of you. Her expression darkens. You think you can run? He'd find you before sunrise. Her tone isn't a threat. It's a warning. This house is the only place left where he can't touch you. Elias steps closer, his face just inches from hers. And who protects me from you? Catalina doesn't back away. You don't need protection from me. You just need to trust me. The tension thickens. The air feels too heavy to breathe. What binds them now isn't fear, and it isn't desire. It's the recognition of two wrecked souls staring into the same mirror. Elias looks away, takes a deep breath, and says, If he's still alive, then I want to find him. Catalina closes her eyes. You're not ready for what you'll see. A loud bang cuts through the silence, a sound from the gate. Elias turns, alert. Catalina doesn't move, but the terror in her eyes betrays her calm. It can't be, she whispers. He asks what's happening, but she doesn't answer. Instead, she walks to the wall and presses a hidden panel. A secret drawer slides open, revealing an old pistol. I thought I'd never need this again. The weapon seems heavier than the years behind it. She locks eyes with him, steady and sharp. When the past knocks on your door, it's because it's found its way back. Elias tries to make sense of her words, but they sound more like prophecy than explanation. The pounding grows louder, more insistent. Catalina inhales, her finger tense on the trigger. He knows we're together. The words hang between them like a curse. Elias steps forward. What does he want? Catalina's answer is cold and certain. What he's always wanted, control. The lights flicker. Thunder shakes the sky. Elias feels his old instincts surge awake, the soldier within him rising from the ashes. Then it's true. She nods, her face composed but her eyes brimming with emotion. Yes. And now, Doctor, you have to choose. Live in fear or die fighting. The invisible camera pulls back slowly, framing them in the center of the room. She, made of steel and scars. He, made of loss and rage. Outside, the wind moans through the trees, carrying with it the echo of what's coming. The truth has been spoken. The trap is set. And within the shadows of the Vor's mansion, fate begins to move once more. Night falls heavy over Verona. The wind rushes through the garden trees like the breath of something ancient, and the mansion's windows tremble in reply. Catalina feels the air shift, a pressure that speaks of danger long expected. The clock shows 2:00 a.m., and the candle flames bow low, as if recognizing a presence that isn't the wind. Beside her, Elias watches the electronic gate flash in short, stuttering bursts, someone outside testing their fear. They found him, she murmurs. Elias feels his stomach tighten. The past has come to collect its debt. Catalina walks to a built-in safe and unlocks it with precision. She removes a small iron box containing documents, photos, and an envelope sealed with the Vos family crest. Evidence? Elias asks. No, she answers. Souvenirs from hell. Inside, a photo. Franco, alive, recent, standing at a party, surrounded by men Elias recognizes. That's impossible, he breathes. Catalina slams the box shut. Nothing's impossible when evil has money and the fear of dying. A metallic thud echoes from the gate. Then another, and another, rhythmic, deliberate, precise. Elias moves to the window and sees headlights cutting through the dark. 3 cars, no plates. Catalina grabs the pistol and tucks it into her waistband. By the movement, I'd say 5, maybe 6. He stares at her, surprised by the calm precision. How can you tell? She gives a faint smile. You learn fast when it's your name they're trying to erase. The first warning shot shatters a window upstairs. Glass rains down over the marble floor. Elias instinctively ducks, pulling her with him. Their breathing tangles, fast, shallow, alive. Catalina stays composed, which only confuses him more. They didn't come to negotiate, he mutters. No one negotiates with ghosts, she replies. The words sound almost poetic, and fear turns into fuel. They sprint down the side corridor. Catalina presses a hidden panel that reveals a narrow staircase behind a bookshelf. This way. Elias hesitates. What's down there? A piece of truth he tried to bury. She descends first, gun drawn, her loose hair falling over her shoulders like a living shadow. The underground passage is tight, the gunfire above muffled by thick stone. The lights flicker, and the darkness seems hungry enough to swallow them whole. You planned this? Elias asks, trying to keep his voice steady. Planning is all that's left when fate refuses to listen, Catalina answers. The corridor ends at a steel door. She enters a code and opens it, revealing a small room lined with folders, tapes, and old recordings. Elias freezes. One of the tapes bears his name, scrawled in shaky handwriting. My case, he whispers. Catalina looks at him. The truth, Elias. The one they stole from you. He takes the tape, hands trembling. You kept this all these years. I did, because I knew the day would come. The emotion in her eyes is something new. Not guilt, not hatred. Faith. I didn't bring you here for revenge. I brought you to clear what Franco corrupted. Elias lowers his gaze. And who clears you, Catalina? The question lingers. She smiles faintly, without an answer. Maybe no one. Maybe that's the price of loving the enemy. Heavy footsteps echo above them. The house is being breached. Elias switches on a small security monitor. The cameras show masked men entering through the veranda. They're inside. Catalina exhales slowly. Then it's over. Elias grips her arm. No, not if there's still time. For the first time, her composure breaks. Don't you understand, Elias? He's upstairs. Franco is here. Elias's blood turns to ice. He stares at the monitor again. A man at the center. Dark suit. The same scar he remembers. Franco Vos. Alive. Moving through the mansion like a king reclaiming his throne. Rage ignites inside him. Raw and instinctive. He's ready to confront, but Catalina stops him. Not now. He grabs her face, firm but trembling. You knew this day would come. She swallows hard. Her eyes say what her voice doesn't. Yes. The basement door bursts open. The first man through is met with a clean, deafening shot. Catalina fires without hesitation, the sound thunderous against the stone walls. Elias ducks, shielding the equipment, as the second intruder collapses. You're still good at this, he mutters. Skill isn't pride, Doctor. Survival. The air thickens. the scent of gunpowder, the stomp of boots, fear transmuted into instinct. The storm has come inside, and the ghosts of the Voss mansion are finally awake. Then his voice, deep, calm, familiar. Catalina. Franco's call drifts down from the top of the staircase, and the echo of her name sends a tremor through her entire body. She closes her eyes for an instant, a lifetime of memories compressed into a single breath. Elias sees the tremor and grips her arm. He doesn't own you anymore. Catalina inhales slowly, opens her eyes and whispers, "Tonight." He'll understand that. They climb the stairs one step at a time, hearts beating like war drums. The corridor stretches ahead, lit only by the stubborn glow of half-melted candles. Franco waits at the end, standing beneath the fragile light of the chandelier. Time folds between them, husband and wife, predator and survivor, both prisoners of the same inferno. Elias feels the weight of the air, the scent of gunpowder and memory intertwining. Franco smiles. So this is it. My traitor and my widow. Together. Catalina raises her gun, but Franco's gaze is faster. You don't shoot ghosts, my love. Elias steps forward instinctively, shielding her. Stay behind me. No, she says. Steady. This is my reckoning. The tension in the room feels like a blade about to snap. Franco takes a single step closer. I thought I taught you the value of obedience. Catalina's smile cuts sharper than the gun. And I thought you understood the cost of underestimating me. The gunfire breaks the silence. But it's Elias who drops to his knees. Not wounded, but seized by the avalanche of memory crashing back into him. The shot reverberates through the hall, and one of Franco's men falls. Catalina didn't miss. Now it's just us, she says, eyes locked on the man she once loved and lost. Franco, unshaken, moves toward her, and the world itself seems to hold its breath. Elias watches from the end of the corridor, pain, love, fury, and fear twisting into something nameless. The scene before him isn't a battle, it's judgment. The past has returned, and with it, a destiny none of them can escape. In the distance, sirens wail. Someone has called for help. But inside the Voss mansion, the war has already begun. Dawn arrives colorless. The house lies silent, the air thick with gunpowder and dread. Curtains sway in the wind that moves through the ruined hall, and the sound of sirens fades, as though the world outside has surrendered. Catalina and Elias are alive, but something inside them isn't. The past has burned through everything it could, leaving only echoes behind. He watches as she wipes dried blood from her hands, each motion slow, ritualistic. You should rest, he says softly. She doesn't answer. Her eyes stay fixed on the emptiness before her, searching for meaning among the ashes. The ring on her finger turns slowly, symbol of a fallen empire and a love that was never pure. Elias steps closer, takes her hand and slides the ring free. He doesn't deserve to hold you, not even in death. Catalina meets his gaze, firm but glimmering with tears she refuses to shed. It's not him that binds me, doctor. It's what I did for him. The words weigh heavier than guilt itself. They leave the wreckage behind, walking toward the one room left untouched. The morning light cuts through the window like a thin blade, catching the dust floating in the air. Elias sits down, exhausted, his body begging for peace. Catalina stands still, frozen in thought. You should hate me, she says. He exhales, weary. I tried. She looks at him, and for a fleeting moment, silence becomes an embrace. Then why are you still here? She asks. He thinks for a long moment before answering. Because understanding you is the closest I've ever come to forgiving myself. The words strike them both at once. Catalina turns away, her gaze, once stone, now glass, solid but on the edge of breaking. You think there's forgiveness for someone who destroyed everything they touched? Elias rises and steps closer. Maybe forgiveness doesn't erase it, just teaches you how to survive the memory. She gives a faint, sorrowful smile. You speak like someone who still believes. He brushes her cheek with his fingertips. I don't believe. I have you. The touch is fleeting, but it's enough to shatter the last wall between them. Catalina closes her eyes, and time halts. The wind drifts through the open window, lifting the veil of the curtain. For a moment, they look like a painting, two sinners trying to understand love amid ruins. You shouldn't come near me, she whispers, her voice barely there. Then why don't you push me away? He asks. She doesn't answer. She just looks at him, and in that silence, confession breathes. Night arrives slowly, draped in blue and remorse. Elia sleeps in a chair, body folded under exhaustion. Catalina watches him from afar, feeling something unfamiliar. Peace, the kind she had long forgotten. She walks toward him, drapes a blanket over his shoulders, and lets her hand rest there for a moment. It's a simple gesture, yet in her, it feels like sin. When she turns away, the mirror reflects a woman she no longer recognizes. Hours later, Elias wakes and finds her on the balcony, gazing at the horizon. Cigarette smoke curls into shapes that the wind quickly destroys. He approaches quietly. "What will you do now?" he asks. She exhales slowly, eyes fixed on the clouds. "What I've always done. Pretend nothing hurts." He steps closer, their bodies nearly touching. But it does now. Catalina turns, meeting his eyes. "You don't know what pain is." He smiles faintly. "Then teach me." The kiss doesn't rush, it's born from silence. Slow, dense, trembling with truth and fear. When it finally happens, the world seems to stop spinning. Rain begins again, soft, washing the air, and everything left between them. Catalina pulls him closer, tears mixing with the rain. "This shouldn't have happened," she whispers. "But it did," he answers. The sound of rain drowns the rest, and the audience feels it. Something inevitable has just begun. Morning comes scented with redemption and wounds. Catalina wakes beside him, his face calm, his breathing steady. For 1 second she believes time has granted mercy. But when she rises, she sees a letter on the table, written in Franco's unmistakable hand. Her blood runs cold. The words are few, but enough. It's not over. The floor seems to vanish beneath her. Elias approaches, picks up the note, reads it aloud. "That's impossible." Catalina shakes her head. Nothing's impossible when the dead know how to walk. Fear returns, but beneath it, something deeper. The realization that this isn't just the old war. It's a new trap, one bound to the love just born between them. Elias tries to steady her. He's bluffing, but she knows Franco never bluffed. He played. Catalina steps toward the mirror and studies her reflection. "Do you think love saves us, Doctor?" she asks softly. Elias comes behind her, takes her hand. "No, but it shows us where it hurts." She meets his eyes, and in them, there's pain, desire, and fear, all sharing the same heartbeat. The ticking clock marks the hours like a reminder of the inevitable. The love born in chaos now carries the weight of betrayal. Elias feels it and pulls her into his arms, holding her tightly as if he could stop time. "Whatever comes, you won't face it alone." She holds him back, but her gaze drifts somewhere far away. "You still don't understand," she murmurs. "I've always been alone." The wind slips through the open window, scattering parts of the letter across the floor. One torn fragment lands near their feet, 2 words written in Franco's hand, for her. Catalina closes her eyes, and the camera moves in. Tears fall uninvited, and the faint music in the background turns into a sorrowful requiem. Elias sees her break, but doesn't know why. Catalina does. The past, once again, has chosen her as its battlefield. She kisses him again, but this time it's different. Urgent. Final. Heavy with guilt. "Catalina," he whispers, trying to speak, but she stops him with a breath against his lips. "Don't say anything. Just let me feel it while it's still real." He obeys, and silence becomes a prayer. The night swallows everything else, and the camera pulls back, the mansion small against the vast, storm-streaked sky. Love has bloomed, but the shadow that birthed it still lives. Between desire and dread, Catalina Vorse finally understands. Peace was never her ending, only the pause between two wars. The storm returns. Clouds cover Verona like a sheet of lead, and the wind howls an omen of the end. Inside an abandoned cathedral, candles tremble with every breath of air. Catalina Vorse walks slowly down the main aisle, each step echoing off the ancient stone columns. Her black dress trails across the wet floor, every stride a quiet reckoning with her own sins. On the altar, a broken cross catches flashes of lightning, the perfect stage for the final judgment. Elias follows a few paces behind, silent, tense, his face worn but resolute. "Are you sure he'll come?" he asks. Catalina doesn't answer. Her eyes already speak the sentence. A distant engine growls through the storm. Heavy doors creak open. Franco Vorse enters, flanked by two armed men. His dark suit looks stitched with arrogance, his smile the same one that once seduced and destroyed. "Catalina," he says, his voice echoing through the nave. "My queen without a throne. She doesn't move. Took you long enough to crawl back from hell." Franco smirks. "Some of us are born with a pass." Elias steps forward, hand slipping beneath his coat, but Catalina stops him with a single glance. "Leave this to me." The air grows dense, vibrating with tension, the kind that bends before it breaks. Franco walks toward the altar, his footsteps sharp against the broken glass and marble. "All these years running from the truth. And still you call me a monster." Catalina lifts her chin. "I don't call you that. You named yourself." He laughs. A hollow, cold sound. "You always loved my power, Catalina. That's what made you stay." She closes her eyes for a brief moment. No, it was fear. But fear dies when love is born. The line hits like thunder. Elias feels it. She's not talking about Franco anymore. Franco notices too. The smirk fades. His tone shifts, dark and venomous. "Ah, so that's it, the doctor. The lamb that lived." He steps closer, voice dripping with contempt. "Do you really think she loves you, doctor? She only loves power. And power," he pauses, smirking again, "is mine." Catalina meets his gaze, steady, defiant. "Not anymore." The first shot tears through the air. The sound ricochets off the stone columns. Elias ducks instinctively, but Catalina doesn't move. The bullet hits one of the altar candles, the flame flickering out in a whisper of smoke. Franco laughs. "Still know how to make an entrance." Catalina, steady and composed, raises her gun and points it at him. "You destroyed the wrong man. Elias was innocent. And her voice softens but doesn't tremble. "I was complicit in your silence." The words echo like both confession and sentence. Franco steps forward, taunting the barrel inches from his chest. "Then finish it, Catalina. Pull the trigger. Show him who you really are." Outside, the rain thickens. Thunder drowns out their breath. Catalina hesitates. Just a heartbeat, but the past claws at her one last time. Elias takes a slow step closer, voice low but resolute. "End it. Not for me, for you." She closes her eyes. The sound of her heartbeat fills the church. When she opens them again, there's no doubt left. 1 second, 1 shot. Franco falls to the ground at the foot of the altar. Lightning cuts through the stained glass, bathing the scene in fractured light, blood mixing with rain. Catalina doesn't cry, doesn't scream. She lowers the gun and watches the man who embodied all her sins fall silent forever. Elias approaches, his hands shaking. "It's over." Catalina slowly shakes her head. Nothing ends. It just changes shape. Thunder rolls, and the camera spins around them, the body on the floor, the cracked cross, and love quietly blooming in the wreckage. She lets the gun fall. The metallic clang sounds almost sacred. Elias holds her by the shoulders, his gaze full of both love and mercy. You're free now. Catalina meets his eyes, and for the first time there's light in hers. Not free. Just empty. He cups her rain-streaked face. Then let me fill what's left. The kiss is soft, unhurried. Not passion, redemption. The camera pulls back, showing the altar bathed in the glow of dawn filtering through shattered glass. The rain eases. Outside, the city begins to wake, unaware that the night has just rewritten 2 lives. Hand in hand, Catalina and Elias walk toward the cathedral doors. The rain now falls gently, like a blessing. Do you think God still listens to sinners? She asks. Elias squeezes her hand. He's always listened to the loudest ones. We just needed to speak softly. They step across the glistening street, the morning sky painted in grey and gold. The camera lingers behind them, 2 silhouettes stitched together by redemption. Behind them, the cathedral fades into the horizon, taking the past with it. And in the distant ringing of the bells, Catalina Vorse, the woman who once commanded silence, finally understands. Power was never about control. It was about feeling. If this story moved you, subscribe and turn on notifications. There are many more tales of love, power, and redemption waiting for you. Silence may rule, but love decides how the story ends.